Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of Artist Spotlight. Today we have a special guest from Tucson, Arizona, Kathy Davis. Hi, Kathy. How are you?
Hey, Nino. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Great to see you here in Arizona in really sunny Seattle. Look at my head has this is must be the sun from Arizona all the way beaming through Zoom. It's amazing. Okay, please tell us about yourself. We're here to get to know you more, and I'm eager to learn more about your background and what you're doing.
Well, sure. So I am in Tucson, Arizona. I'm a snowbird, so I spend the winters here. My permanent home is Philadelphia. So it's pretty cold, and it was snowy there yesterday. So I think I'm in the better place. And we spend from January through about mid-April in Tucson. And so I will go back to my home in Philadelphia, and I have a studio there, and I have a small studio here, so that I can work when I'm here too.
Okay. So how does that work between, you have this studio here and the studio there?
It's confusing.
But you bring most of your work with you, or is it like separate? Sometimes here, sometimes there.
I kind of restart. When I'm working in Tucson, I have learned the hard way that when I'm working on a larger canvas, that I need to ship it back home, and that's expensive. So that's one thing. I'm either working on paper now, or sometimes I'm going to try unstretched canvas so that I can do that easier.
Roll it.
Yes. And I do have supplies. I mean, over the years, this is our 6th winter here. And so over the years, I've added, supplies so that I don't have quite as much here. And I do kind of carry favorite brushes or tools sometimes back and forth. But for the most part, it's pretty well equipped. So it's like a different planet in Tucson than it is in Philadelphia. So it's inspiring to me, the change of scenery.
Yeah, different. Do you think that's, well, tell me more about, like, how do you get started with art and
Oh, sure.
Yeah, how do you?
Well, like most of us, I always liked drawing and doing things as a kid. But when I got to high school, I sat next to the most talented kid in the class, unfortunately. And I think I was easily intimidated, for one thing. My confidence wasn't that high, and I just figured he would be the artist and I would go on and do something else. So I studied education, and I taught elementary school for 6 years.
Okay.
And then and I always liked art. I taught English and science.
Okay. Wow.
Which was a reach, believe me. But it was fun. But then after a while, I thought, I like teaching a lot, but I thought if I'm going to teach, I want to teach something that I really love. And that was art. So I went back to school, and I got my teaching degree in art and a master's degree in art education. And then I taught high school art for a couple of years. And I learned as much from those kids. It was a great experience working with that age group. But all along, I was sort of jealous watching them do the creative.
I want to do that instead.
Yeah, exactly. And then I thought, someday maybe I'll do something creative on my own. I always kind of wanted to work for myself, but I wasn't sure. It was like, what do I do? Children's books, pottery. I loved it all. It was really, all the arts were interesting to me. But I left teaching to have my 2 children, who are now grown, and I stayed at home for a couple of years with them, and I took a calligraphy class. So I thought, when I was in backtracking for a minute. When I was in graduate school, I took one painting class and I really, really enjoyed it. And I was doing larger pieces with acrylic, which was the first time I've done that. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a painter. But I found that I thought, well, when the kids nap, I'll paint. That didn't work out so good. You know, they would be awake in 20 minutes and I didn't even get started. So I took up, I started doing smaller things with calligraphy, which was just a really nice departure for me and something I could do. And I was doing some logo design and a few different things that way. But it wasn't a full-time working situation. But then I got divorced, which was, you never plan for that, you know, you never think that's going to happen. But my kids were little and I was forced into going back to work, and I needed to make a living. I had a mortgage to pay and kids to be responsible for. And everybody figured, well, she'll go back to teaching because that was all my training.
That's my first thought when you said that. Like, are you going, wait, what? Okay, go ahead.
And for some reason, there was something in me that said, yeah, I always wanted to do something on my own. This might not be the ideal situation, but I'm just going to go for it. You know, I'm going to try to figure out what that is. So I took several part-time jobs so I could, you know, figure things out as I was going along. And a friend of mine said, well, you know, I've been doing Christmas cards for my family. And my friend said, you know, you ought to look into that industry, the greeting card industry. And I thought, I don't know the first thing about it. And she said, well, there are trade shows in New York, which I never knew about. And, you know, you should visit. So I did, and I was overwhelmed because there's so much talent in that industry, but I thought it looked like fun. And I came back and I did a few little mock-ups and I went back to the show. And at the time you could meet with some art directors, and I just, you know, I met a couple of companies that I really liked and they liked what I had, and started to just freelance one greeting card at a time while I was still working these other jobs. And it grew to the point where, oh, I think I can maybe make a living at this. And my brother at the time said, what, are you crazy? You're never going to make a living doing greeting cards. Well, he ended up, long story short, I worked at that business for 30 years and I grew my company. I had 30 employees at the time. And my brother, who said, you'll never make a living, ended up being my finance director.
There you go.
I love to tell that story, and he hated it.
That's great.
But it was a really, I mean, at the time, I guess that I was going through all this, I was sort of like, well, I want to do fine art, you know, but I knew it would be a tough go to make a living doing that. And I needed to find something in more of a commercial vein. And I was a little snobbish about it at first. And it ended up being really rewarding for me because—
What do you mean by snobbish about it? Tell me more about like what
I guess I felt like I was selling out a little bit.
I see.
You know, if I wanted to be a fine artist, that
I don't do greeting cards. I'm that's not fine. I see.
But you know, it was really nice because I wrote the copy for the cards and did the artwork, and I found that it was a really nice way to connect people to each other. And I felt like I was making a little bit of a difference, you know. So it was rewarding. It was a great career. And like I said, I did it for 30 years, and I had a lot of creative freedom. So I came up with different looks, and I hired an art team eventually over the years. I hired managers. You know, it was a real learning experience for me. But it was great. And my cards, so I sold the company in 2019 to American Greetings, and they're still selling my brand,
Funny. Yeah.
which is
I
great.
saw that your name's still there.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Check it
Yeah,
out.
it
Yeah,
is.
it must be really I don't know, fulfilling. I mean, that
Mhm.
that route.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's amazing how you know, it's always, I guess it's always in the back of our mind, fine artist.
Right.
Like how do you make it as a fine artist? You know, those kind of questions always linger. And then sometimes we have, you know, we have to, everybody's different and everybody's circumstances are different. And um, going through the commercial part of art making is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad
It's a
thing.
practical thing, isn't it? I mean,
It is, and you really you have to adapt quite a bit to what the consumers respond to.
of course,
I
yeah.
mean, when I first was doing the mock-ups that I took to the show, I did little collage pieces, and I thought that was like, and I had one watercolor of a flower in there.
Yeah.
And when the one art director saw it, she's like, oh, I want to see more of that look, because the watercolor is more emotive for people. And that's what greeting cards are all about, is, you know, sharing emotion and, you know, that touching hearts, that sort of thing. So I painted a lot of hearts and flowers over the years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that world to me it's similar to basically a design world. You're solving people's problem with your art.
Yes.
And that there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's a great thing about that. Similarly, when we do commission work for somebody, you know, we just have to remember, as fine artists, you know, we're at that point, if we sign the dot, or you know, we agree to that project, we are working for somebody.
True. But it was a challenge, because it was a good challenge for me, because I was developing what was then a brand. And so a brand needs to have its own look and feel. And so it was like, you know, you wanted to do that, but you wanted to have variety, and you wanted to make sure it sold.
Right.
And then we started to license to other products, and had calendars and bedding and crafts, all kind of things.
Yeah. So all becoming the suite of products.
Excuse me.
Nice. Yeah. So that's that just reminds me of, you know, finding the balance between what the clients wants and also our own voice, and where that mingle between the two. I think that's it's the fun part, or the challenging part sometimes.
Yes. And then now that I feel like I'm reinventing myself. You know, I reinvented from being a teacher to owning a business to, you know, now it's with the fine art.
Yeah.
You don't want to worry so much about the end consumer and selling the work.
That's true.
You know, you want to find your voice, but you hope that it resonates with other people as well.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So so that's what you've been doing. And then what are you doing now then, in your reinventing yourself now? Where are you right now? Are you working on a set of pieces that you want to do shows of, or?
So I'm learning a lot, you know.
Me too. I mean, we are learning. Yeah.
And so I've been experimenting, you know, kind of exploring different things. I've taken classes both in Philadelphia and in Tucson. I found a really nice group of artists and a teacher here who's very inspiring. And one of the things about my work that I'm doing now, which I really did even when I was doing the greeting cards. And I used all watercolor when I did greeting cards. That was pretty much my brand. And now I'm using acrylic paint and some collage and mixed media. But color has always been a really a driver for me. I love color, and I love especially joyful colors. In fact, my brand promise, if you will, when I had the greeting cards was scatter joy, because I felt like, you know, with every card you send, you're scattering a little bit of joy and that sort of thing. And so people even today, when I'm using color, say, oh, it's such happy colors. I'm like, well, I do that because I want to feel that happiness, you know? And anyway, but I am also trying to go a little deeper than that, and, you know, to work some, you know, differences in with that. Also because of my calligraphy that I did, because all of my greeting cards are hand lettered, you know, they were all, I don't even call myself a calligrapher, but I did study some of that. So it's in my background, and I love mark making. So I like to integrate mark making in my paintings. And I'm just, you know, exploring all of those things and trying to develop a voice, but at the same time, because I have such freedom now with my creativity.
You don't know where to go. Just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, there are too many
options.
Yeah. But it
no,
is
but at least you're doing abstract art. That's one focus right now.
Yeah,
so that's
no more hearts and flowers.
A little, so there's a little bit of focus there. So that's good. Yeah.
It's different, but it's challenging. And I'm preparing for, I have a show at a library back home in Philadelphia coming up in May. So I'm looking forward.
So you have to bring all of that to, you have to bring all your paintings.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, thank you. It's kind of a coming out party for me, you know, with doing something different, because most of the people, especially in that area, know me for my greeting card work. So it's kind of like, this is what I'm doing now. So
do you think, Go ahead.
I was just going to say, not the same people will maybe relate to the abstract work that, like,
it's a different kind of audience sometimes. I was just going to ask about your writing. Do you think you put your writing into your paintings, like, or connecting it, not literally putting writing on the paintings maybe, but title and then maybe some writing on it, you know, those kind of things. Like, how do you even think about, because I assume you love writing, so.
Yeah, well, I do. You know, I wasn't trained as a writer, but between doing the calligraphy, I always like quotations, you know, inspired quotes and things like that. And writing was a really big part of the work that I did, because the writing is what sold the greeting cards. You know, it was less the artwork is what attracts people to the card, maybe to pick it up, but it's the writing that really means that really resonates with people. So the writing is something that I learned, and I just wrote very naturally. It wasn't rhyming verse, it wasn't very long, it was just very casual style. And you know, so I have been thinking a lot about that, about how to integrate that. And so I'm experimenting with I did a series recently. They weren't paintings, but they were little drawings with just black ink. And I did really loose letter forms. And then I started to do more just abstract shapes and asemic writing, if you will. So I'll see where that goes. I'm really not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe you do like a book sometime.
I actually, I have written a book in my past life.
Okay, there you go. You've done everything, pretty much. Okay, well, what about before we wrap up, how about some advice for your past self and
Oh.
maybe other artists who's,
Mhm.
you know, especially, I mean, I'm looking at you, you've been in the art world, in commercial art, in the business part, and, you know, now you're doing the fine art. So I think there's a lot of wisdom in there. But
a lot of mistakes. You learn from your mistakes.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. Yeah. So, I mean, advice to, I guess, my younger self and to anyone starting out, I think the basic thing is to believe in yourself and to know that everybody has something unique to offer. And it may take some time for you to discover that, but it's worth investing in. Yeah. And I think the other thing is that everyone should be open to evolving. You know, I think we don't want to get stuck in a rut and feel like, oh, I'm going to discover what this is that I do, and then I'm going to have a formula for doing it. I think we all have to evolve and adapt, because we're changing as people, and I think the work that we do needs to change along with it, and I think we shouldn't be afraid to make those changes. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. That's great advice. So, well, again, well, thanks again for your time, Kathy.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, best of luck with moving
back
between the place now. Your next show, and please share what you have.
I will. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great to see.
Great, Nina.
Okay, so I guess
so
I'll see you around. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.